Mandy. Strange things happen when Mandy is around. Ruth Stubbs remembered clearly the day she first laid eyes on Mandy. Ruth was the curator at the Canal Museum in British Columbia in 1991 when a woman walked in wanting to donate an old doll that she said belonged to her grandmother. The woman seemed particularly eager to get rid of it. She practically plopped the doll down on my desk, recalled Ruth in a 1995 article in the Canal Advocate. The woman went on to explain that she was donating the doll, Mandy, because she didn't want her daughter to play with it, given its age and deteriorating condition. There was another reason as well, but Ruth wouldn't find that out until a bit later. Although after accepting the doll there wasn't anything much to like about it. The model was just made in England or Germany between 1910 and 1920. As the body of the doll was torn in multiple faces and its clothing was just stained and grubby. The most important part was that she had a large crack running down the side of its face which made one eye appear to leer independently of the other. For some point of time the doll was quarantined as the workers of a museum first put Mandy in a plastic cover for at least 48 hours just to determine if any insects had infested her body. After some point of time some staff members reported the bad feelings and thoughts when Mandy was around there for the first couple of days. After her quarantine ended, Mandy was then photographed from various angles and in different positions as part of the cataloging process of days. The photographer and her boyfriend who was along to get reported, felt uneasy during the shoot but also without any other problems they completed their session. The next day, however, when they returned to their photo lab they were astonished to find the room in total disarray. There were things thrown like pens and pencils and the room was scattered as if, in Ruth's words, a small child had had a temper tantrum. After seeing all this the photographer went to a dark room to grab some of Mandy's photos. After coming from the room, she was looking frustrated and her face was all pale. She told her staffers that when she was in a dark room, she heard a loud sigh behind her and she was followed by something and suddenly she heard falling of the shelf. Not knowing quite what to do yet with their newly acquired artifact, museum workers placed Mandy in a makeshift case that faced the entrance doors. It wasn't long before patrons reported feeling like the doll's eyes followed them around the room, or that they saw Mandy's eyes and moved or blink.
Before going on, if you like these stories, do hit the like button, subscribe to my channel and turn on the notification bell, so you will not miss new stories like this.
After viewing the doll many staff members felt inexplicable sadness and still when visitors visit the museum they still find their camera malfunctioning when they are around Mandy. One day Ruth invited a photographer from the Caribou Observer to come and take some pictures of Mandy. Afterward, he called to report that he had no photos as this had never happened before. The photographer Seth Gautreaux claimed that when he took the picture, he had the surreal experience of seeing her turn her head away from the lens. When he finally lined up the shot he wanted, he swore that the doll smiled at him right as the flash hit her face. The reports of strange occurrences came so fast and furious that not only the visitors in the museum were having strange feelings but also the staff members were also included in feeling the same way. Certain things happened like lunches would disappear from the refrigerator and show up later in desk drawers, pens, pencils, books, and other assorted sundries went missing with regularity. Footsteps could be heard at night by workers. Ruth was also well aware of the stories being reported. One day a retired curator from Surrey visited the Canal Museum. This man was known for his ability to determine things about artifacts, or to read their histories, just by touching them. In paranormal jargon this is the psychic gift of psychometry. He picked up Mandy and immediately felt cold chills race through his body. He set her back down and stated that the doll had seen a lot of abuse throughout its existence. Soon Ruth's curiosity made her go to the doll's owner, just hoping for the little background information. And the woman shared the story with Ruth about Mandy, that Mandy belonged to the woman's grandmother and she used to store the doll in the basement. And soon strange things started to happen. The woman noticed that at night she kept hearing a baby crying in the basement, but whenever she opened the window and looked down she found no one, and whenever she closed the window she again listened to the same noise again. Never was a real baby ever found, either in the basement or outside the house. The only baby on the premises was Mandy. And from the day Mandy was donated to the museum, the crying in the woman's home stopped. This was the story told to Ruth by the woman. Well, who knows the truth, but the greater part of Mandy's background always remains a mystery. Her current status as the star of the Canal Museum is undisputed. Mandy the doll draws crowds of visitors year-round, many hoping to catch a blinking eye, a turning head, or a moving finger. Some may hope for a bigger story to tell back home, like how their camera battery suddenly drained the instant it got near her. Mandy does not seem to curse her visitors, although she may share her overwhelming feeling of sadness or maybe a bit of mischief, but her true secrets have never been revealed as she keeps all of them to herself. Claire. I want answers to why she is and what she is. Jill Phillips made this clear question, and she first received a gift from her family friend named Miss Marion. In the past there was just an old woman who used to give her the gifts like stuffed animals and other toys, but on this particular day, 8-year-old Jill received the most memorable gift yet, which was a dated but unblemished porcelain doll. Although Jill was a tomboy who loved to play with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Transformers rather than with dolls, she graciously accepted the gift from her friend and placed it in a child-sized rocking chair she had in her bedroom. She named the doll Claire. Claire was an ordinary looking, even pretty, doll. Dark brown hair hung down from her head in loose curls, framing a cream-colored complexion, rosy cheeks, pink lips, and dark brown eyes. She wore a peachy pink and cream dress adorned with an apron and ruffled underskirt. On her feet she wore removable black Mary Jane shoes. Claire's head, arms, hands, and legs from the knee down were porcelain. Her body was made from a soft, stuffed fabric. At starting, Jill felt uneasy around Claire. Playing in her bedroom with the doll nearby, she couldn't help but feel that Claire was watching her like a prison guard might watch over an inmate, ready to pounce at any indication of an infraction. It was one evening when Jill was reading a book and there was a certain mishap in the presence of Claire in the room, and the thing impressed the 8-year-old Jill in his mind. On Jill's dresser was a musical carousel horse. All of a suddenly it sprang to life, not just emitting an odd note from, say, a floor vibration, but actually playing its entire song while the little horse figurine glided up and down to the music, just as it would have if it had been fully wound. Jill watched the scene before her in astonishment, knowing that what she was seeing was impossible. After a few moments, the music and the horse stopped as suddenly as they had started. If there was any other child they would have run and screamed and run away from the room to find parents, but Jill stood there and been in the scariest situation ever she went through in her childhood. There was one of the entities she called Shadow Man, who was a black faceless phantom that appeared to her many times over the years. Jill tried to convince her parents about the existence of the Shadow Man, and none of them believed her, so she didn't think that her parents even believed this story also, so she kept the secret to herself. When she grew up, Jill said that at the time she didn't associate the carousel incident with Claire. She just assumed it was caused by some other spirit that resided in her house. Soon after, for several intense nights, the strange voice started to happen. Jill was startled awake by a woman's voice that seemed to be mere inches from her head, shouting, "Jill! Wake up!" Jill would jump out of bed only to find her bedroom empty. This not only happened to Jill but also to her brother down the hall. Eventually the shouting voice died down and happened only periodically to Jill and her brother as the years went on. After the two of them moved out of the house, the unseen woman began screaming at Jill's father as he slept, and reportedly still does. Although there was no such evidence which could be related to Claire, but there were some such things which could start to disappear from the room, and after finding them it gets on the floor in front of Claire. There was this one ring missing once and Jill found that in the doll's pocket. There were also some unusual things like seeing books inexplicably fall off shelves near Claire. After some strange things there was a night that catapulted Claire from creepy to horrifying. It started when Jill was awakened by a rhythmic thumping sound in her bedroom. She groggily sat up and, aided by the eerie glow of a nightlight, saw what was making the noise: Claire's rocking chair, which was rocking back and forth on its own. Jill couldn't move her eyes off of Claire, although if she had, perhaps she wouldn't be haunted by nightmares to this day. Because the next thing that happened was a nightmare itself. The doll's feet slowly and deliberately turned themselves from a pointed-out position to a pointed-up position. And then the doll turned its head and looked straight at Jill. On some sort of hellish cue, all four of Jill's music boxes then turned on to provide a chaos of creepy background. Finally finding the horrific voice, Jill screamed for her parents, but the music boxes stopped, and that was enough for Jill to decide Claire needed to be put away. Although she couldn't find it within herself to actually get rid of the doll, she did pack it up in a box and placed it in the back of a storage closet, where it remained untouched until Jill was well into her adult years. Jill came to learn some years later that Claire's time spent with Miss Marion was marked with mystery as well. Receiving a doll from Miss Marion, as she was admitted she was not sure where the doll came from, but she discovered one day when she was cleaning out the closet. She put the doll on the shelf, but the doll didn't stay on the shelf. It reportedly moved on its own to different seating areas throughout the house. Disembodied voices and footsteps could be heard coming from the basement, cigar smoke would materialize out of the blue, and glass would be heard to shatter, yet nothing was ever found broken. Miss Marion also claimed that sometimes at night invisible hands would tuck her into bed. Doll having all these strange phenomenal uncertain things, so Miss Marion believed her house was getting haunted by the spirits of victims in the train accident that occurred in 1900, which claimed the lives of 38 people. In 2018, the story of Claire caught the attention of author and radio show personality on a program about paranormal topics. Tim was doing research for a book about haunted objects and asked Jill if he could run some experiments on the doll. Jill agreed and sent Claire to him via UPS, the first time Claire had been anywhere other than the back of a closet in 18 years. When Tim first took Claire out of the packaging, the needle on his EMF, electromagnetic field, detector spiked, but quickly fell back to its base level and did not move again in subsequent things. One day Tim heard some male and female voices coming from his home office. When he went into the office to investigate, the voice suddenly stopped. Tim now recounts these events, including Claire's affinity for raising the thermostat, which is now published in a book on haunted objects. No longer banished to a closet, Claire currently lives with a friend of Jill's in a haunted Victorian house in Atlanta. The friend is a Houngan, a male voodoo priest, and keeps Claire in check along with the rest of the spirits in his home. Jill does have a creepy childhood and reflects on her experience in a positive light, as according to her, Claire will be both a special and terrifying memory from her childhood, and she is the reason she believes in spiritualism and it helped her in religious beliefs. As she is the one reason she delved into the paranormal as much as she does, and so, I need the answer to why she is, and what she is.